Good evening, everyone. Welcome to College Panel Night. My name's Elaine Schwartz. I'm Director of Guidance. And we have some of our school counselors in the audience as well. So if they would stand up and wave, that would be great. I've Bill Plunkett, we've got Tom Brown, we've got Deb Slocum, we've got Vicki Capozzi, Denise Honeycutt. We have one of our interns, Samantha Eisenberg. Who did I forget? Okay. Well, I'm just going to tell you that these counselors next year, I guarantee, will become your best friends. You're going to be seeing them all the time. And I would like to thank Jim Honeycutt, who's up in the balcony, who's actually taping this so that you can actually view it on YouTube. We are very, very fortunate this evening and privileged to have these amazing college representatives here tonight. They have volunteered their time. Many have driven or flown from great distances to be here, and the reason they're here is they want to give you accurate information so that you can feel more comfortable and secure with this entire college admissions process. We all know that you are in the midst of it right now and how overwhelming and stressful it can be. We're hoping that tonight we can alleviate some of that stress and answer many of your questions. We began this evening, just to let you know, before we got here in this auditorium, with a wonderful dinner through our culinary arts program. Our students actually did the cooking and the serving. It was amazing. So we've had a great evening already. It's truly, I think everyone really enjoyed it. It was amazing. Kids did a great job. I'd like to introduce you to the panel this evening. I'm going to start on my far right, which is your left. So far right, Kate Zolkis from Amherst College, Taylor McCormick from Brown University, Emily Maloney from Colgate University, Suzanne Willard from Hobart and William Smith Colleges, Larry Alterman from Michigan State University, Maureen Pine from Smith College, Jennifer Isaf from Syracuse University, Rachel Rosenberg from Tulane University, Ann Fleming Brown from Union College, Peter Wilson from the University of Chicago, Peter Foxen from the University of Connecticut, Jarrett Saunders from the University of Massachusetts, Sally Lindsley from the University of Michigan, April Hadnot from the University of Texas, Zebin Ashton from Vanderbilt University, and John Burney from Wofford College. Yeah. We really feel very privileged to have them here this evening. Each representative will speak about a topic pertinent to the admissions process, and it's pertinent not specifically only to their school, but to many schools. So you can take this information and transfer it to many of the schools that you guys are looking at. And at the end, we are going to have time for questions and answers, and we're hoping for lots of questions from the students. So please hold them until then, and without further ado, we will begin.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you again very much for having us. So my topic is, it's a very short one, to talk about what colleges are looking for in college and college applicants. So I figured I could address all of everyone's topics here, but I will refrain from doing that and just speak very briefly. I think boiling it down to one word we're looking for in the whole college application process and in applications is authenticity. Authenticity. So students, what you need to remember is you're going to be 17, 18-year-olds, right, applying to college. We do not expect you to be PhD candidates. You're high school seniors. So you do not have to be perfect. But it'll be much more effective if you are yourselves in the entire process, whether it's looking for a list of colleges to visit and then eventually to apply to. And throughout the college application, really try to be true to yourself. Now, it's hard because when you're doing this, you'll have a lot of friends, possibly relatives, other people who are really looking out for your best interests, but you need to look out for your best interests and be true to yourself and be totally authentic to what you're thinking about, what you want to write your essay topics about, which teachers you think would be the best teachers to write letters of recommendation. You really cannot manufacture authenticity. It has to be something that's intrinsic, that you're really focusing on. You guys are incredibly fortunate because you have a superb college counseling staff here. And I would encourage you, if you ever have a question about what your college topics should be, make sure you talk to the experts at your high school, and those are your college counselors. So I think I'll just end with that, but throughout this college process, be authentic and encourage those who are supporting you through their love and their encouragement and wanting the best for you, that this process, you want their input, but you also need to do what's best for you.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Taylor McCormick. I'm from Brown University. And authenticity is a great segue to my topic, which is extracurricular activities. So you probably know at this point that you will have an opportunity to tell us what you're involved in outside of class and how many hours per week you spend on those activities. And I know it can be really overwhelming as a student to think, what should I be doing? What should I put in my resume? How will that look? So I'm going to share with you 2 pieces of advice that will help you figure out how we review a resume or the extracurricular activities page in the Common App, for example. The first is you'll have more free time in college. I know it doesn't seem like that now, but you will. And we look at that extracurricular activity page or resume to see that you know how to manage time, because you're going to need to manage time in college. And then the second piece that I'll end on is and I can speak for myself here, we truly don't care what you do. Startling to hear, maybe. We care that you care about what you do. And that's a huge difference. And I think, you believe it or not, that comes across. If you're really passionate about something, we'll know that. So if you don't love volunteer work, don't feel like you need to do it. If you love the violin, you play it 20 hours a week, we'll see that. We'll see that passion. So my advice to you is, in keeping true with being authentic, be authentic with how you're spending your time outside of class, and know that there is no formula. There's no right resume. And I'll end on that.
Hi everyone, Emily Maloney from Colgate University in Hamilton, New York. I'm going to speak a little bit to the nuts and bolts of the process, how to apply, and the different ways that you can do that. Every school that you're looking at will have different deadlines. They'll have different options for you to apply to their schools. So this is the part of the process that you really need to take great notes, get all of the information from the website, maybe keep a table that will help you get everything in on time. And your guidance counselors are the perfect people to help you with this. The first way that you can apply to a college is through early decision. How many of you have heard of early decision? Probably a lot of you, yes. Early decision is a binding agreement to a school. So what that means is that if a school is your absolute first choice, you can apply early decision, and if you get into that school through early decision, then you have to attend that school, which should be probably a good day for you. That binding contract is not breakable. So that has to be a decision that you are 180% comfortable with. When you apply early decision to a school, you can only apply early decision to one school, not multiple schools. So that has to be a really smart and confident choice that you and your family makes together. After that, there's what's called early action. And this is where you can apply to a school early, usually in November, and hear back from the school early as well, usually in December. This option is not binding, so in most cases. So what this means is that you can hear from a school a little bit earlier, but you do not have to then attend that school. You're not contractually obligated for that school. So that just gives you some options earlier in the process, finding out a little bit earlier so that you have more time to make your decision. So that's those are your early options. Early decision also has sometimes at different schools, there can be 2 parts to that. So there might be 2 different rolling sections for that early decision option. So definitely check that out at the schools that you're looking at. There's also rolling admission at some schools in the United States, and this is where you can apply early, and as soon as they look at your application, they will then get you a decision. There's no set time that they get back to you all at once. So that's an option if you want to find out a little bit earlier as well. You can put your application in early, and they will get it back to you early. And then there's regular decision, of course, which is just a straightforward application to Colgate. Or, I'm sorry, wow. Sorry, guys. Just a straightforward application to whatever school you choose. The one thing I'll talk a little bit about with an early decision contract is financial aid. And it can depend on the school that you're applying to. A lot of schools will give you the same amount of financial aid that they would give you if you were a regular decision candidate, but that is not always the case. So it's definitely important to think about the financial options that your family has and whether that can help make a decision if you want to apply early decision or not to a school.
Good? All right. My name is Sue Willard. I'm from Hobart and William Smith College, and I have everyone's favorite topic, testing. So quizzing the audience, how many students here are just overjoyed to take standardized tests soon? Anybody? Yes, be authentic. Really? Nobody enjoys the SATs or ACTs? I mean, shocking. And parents, actually, how many of you enjoyed taking it? How many of you enjoyed, the harping that you probably received to study for them? So remember that when your sons and daughters are going through that lovely standardized testing process. But just a couple things about standardized tests. I think it's important to look at each of the schools that you're looking at to see what their standardized test requirements are. If it's a university, sometimes they ask for the subject tests, the SAT subject tests, to see special skills in sciences or English or something like that. So be very aware of what they require if they do require subject tests, okay? So you know that ahead of time and obviously can plan to take those tests, and if you need to take them more than once, you can do that. The other thing is you have some schools that are test optional and some schools that require testing. So just the people on the panel here, how many schools are test optional? So I'm gonna steal a saying that one of my colleagues that was on this panel previously has said. If schools are test optional, they truly are test optional. I know a lot of times students say, okay, well, they say they're test optional, but are they really test optional? If a school is test optional, they truly are test optional, okay? And what one of my colleagues said is that, schools that are test optional, I think their mindset is, what do we want to, base a judgment on a student's potential on? 3.5 hours of work or 3.5 years of work? Okay, some schools have such a volume of applicants that they need, another piece of academic material to kind of sort through everyone that's applied. But when you're looking at that, there are plenty of websites to tell you what schools are test optional, what schools aren't test optional. Since some students are very, very bright but struggle on standardized testing, I think that having a mix of different types of schools, some that require, some that don't, just in case things don't go the way that you had hoped. Just because a school doesn't require standardized test scores doesn't mean it's not a great institution. So study hard, enjoy those long Saturdays testing, and it's one piece of the puzzle. I don't think that you should think that if you don't do well on your standardized test, your future is over. I think that you look at the schools that are going to value you for what your strengths are, and there's definitely a school out there for all of you, testing or not.
Hi, I'm Larry Alterman from Michigan State University, and I am talking about the transcript, which is actually perfect. We just talked about 3.5 hours of your life in an SAT or ACT format. Well, a transcript is really nothing more than a map of where you've been, where you are right now, and where you're going. So I am pretty confident that all my colleagues up here spend a decent amount of time every year looking at transcripts. And we're looking at what classes did you take in 9th grade, in 10th grade, in 11th grade? What does that senior year look like? How have the grades been? Have we seen maybe a student that's gotten better over time? What are the levels? Here at Staples, you have 5 different levels. So that can tell us a lot too, because sometimes you may start down at a certain level of classes and you may really ascend as you go through your 4 years here. Your grades may get better. And so that transcript really provides us a tremendous amount of information. And I know we spend a lot of time, and I'm sure all my colleagues spend a lot of time looking at that transcript. And right now, you've decided your classes for senior year, so that's one of the things we're going to certainly look at. But again, 4 years of work. It's a lot of work. It's something you can talk about even in your application if you choose to. I'm always asking students about different years in their process. And just so you know, you're way more than a number. You're really a collection of 4 years worth of work, and that's significantly more than a number. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Maureen Pine. I'm an admission officer at Smith College, and I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about social media, which I know is everybody's favorite topic, especially up here at this table. The reason I want to talk about social media is because as a prospective student, it's your job to research an institution thoroughly to make sure it really is going to be a good fit for you. You're going to hear that term a lot about schools being a fit. And how do you really know if a school is a fit for you? Well, you'll do your campus visit. You'll maybe spend an overnight on campus. Maybe you'll do an open house program. Social media can really help you to research a school at a much deeper level than you may realize. Certainly, you want to get on the school's Facebook pages. You might want to like the Facebook page, follow the Twitter stream. You may want to get on the Instagram page to see pictures of daily life at a college, especially if it's a school halfway across the country where you might not get to visit as early. But that's really superficial stuff. Search tags, search hashtags, and go beyond the hashtag Smith College. You'll find individual departments will have their own Facebook pages, their own Twitter streams, they'll have their own Instagram pages. Tumblr blogs, student Tumblr blogs are a fantastic way to get a sense of what it is like to be a student at that college every single day of the year. Social media also can be a great way for you to show some demonstrated interest in a college. You can participate in Twitter chats, in web chats, Google Hangouts, all sorts of different ways to get information. It's also a great way to connect with current students. And probably one of the most important things for you in your decision is going to be connecting with a current student if you can, because they know what it's really like to be at college, at the college you're looking at. I can tell you all of these wonderful things about Smith College and our fantastic programs and our beautiful campus and everything else, but I don't live there. So it's important for you to connect with current students. And you can do that in all the ways I mentioned. You can ask students oftentimes questions through their blogs. When we see questions posted to our Facebook pages, very often it's a current student that's answering the question and not a social media manager. So it's really a great way to get a little bit below the surface, and you need to do that. You need to dig deep to find if a school is the right place for you. The one admonishment, obviously, and I'm sure you've all heard this before, is to be careful about your own social media presence. I know that you probably all know that you should be smart about what you post online. Maybe you need to be even smarter than you think. And I want to share one real quick story with you. Even sites that you might think that we wouldn't see. That we don't go on your Facebook pages. We don't troll for bad information. But if something comes to our attention, there are times that we're going to have to deal with it. So even sites you might think that we might not see. For instance, who knew that Snapchat would be hacked a number of years ago and all those pictures would end up in all kinds of different places? Probably nobody thought that would happen. A few years ago, we had an admitted student who was on an unofficial class of 20, etc. Facebook page for our college, and she was posting very unsavory content. She was offensive in her content, she was a little bit of harassing in her content, and she was saying things that were really riling up other students who were on that page. We weren't on that page, we didn't have a presence on that page, it was a private page, we weren't invited. One of the parents who was on the page, and his daughter was considering Smith, contacted us to let us know that this student who was saying that she was going to be part of our incoming class was posting all this awful stuff, and we're talking very, very awful stuff, on that Facebook page. Because of that, we ended up rescinding her offer of admission. So be careful. Even if you think it's a place where we might never see it, it may come to our attention. So just be smart about that. You can use social media in a really, really positive way to make connections with students and to find out information, but just be smart. You don't want to spend all this time crafting this really positive essay about yourself, a great application, and have this great positive interview only to undermine it by being careless with your social media.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Issa from Syracuse University. One of the things that Maureen mentioned was just a brief clip about college visits, and that's what I'm going to just briefly talk to you about. How many of you have been on a college visit? A lot of you. How many of you went with an older sibling prior to your start of your college search? Okay, so you're somewhat experienced with that. I'm not probably going to give you any secret things that you maybe haven't learned already, but just being smart about your college visit. And as you start, and most of you have already visited a few, but I know you're probably gearing up for a busy summer, and going into the fall, you'll be making many more visits, but just start getting organized and, working together as a family to determine what schools you want to start visiting, clustering them together, what might be in the same region or area, so you can be smart about the trips that you're taking. Obviously, it is a time and financial investment to make all these trips to different places. And start looking, as you pick out your schools that you're going to visit, just take a look and see what other schools might be in the area. Maybe there's a school that you've never heard of, or one that you knew was there, but maybe just didn't really think about. But it might be worth your while to take a visit, because sometimes you never know what might turn out to be the right fit for you. You might discover a school that you never had intention of looking at previously. So be smart about it. Make wise decisions about your time and where you're going to spend. What schools do you want to visit prior to applying? And maybe what are those schools that you might have to wait and find out if you eventually are admitted to those schools and visit after that time frame. And start by, getting organized, making a list of questions you want to ask. What do you want to accomplish when you're on that visit? Are there things that you want to specifically see or do during that visit? Do you want to explore the local area? Do you want to find out maybe something that might be going on that you can attend? For example, if you're thinking of maybe going into theater, or you really enjoy theater, go and visit a school when you know that there's maybe a drama department performance. Are you interested in athletics? Visit around a time where you can go to an athletic event. So those are things that you want to consider as you're starting to plan your visits. And then look at all the different visitation options those schools have to offer. There's so many varieties of visitation options, depending on the schools, whether it's just your standard campus tour, information session. Some schools offer to have lunch with a faculty member or a current student. Maybe it's an overnight program, sit in on a class. So all of those different things, again, what do you want to accomplish on your visit? And make sure you plan and register ahead of time. So for example, if you do want to sit in on a class, a lot of times professors appreciate at least 24 or 48 hours notice. Do you have a specific academic interest? Would you like to meet some staff or faculty within that specific department while you're visiting? So those are things you want to think of. And then again, have your list of questions ready to go, so once you make that visit, you don't forget anything. Also, as I mentioned before, maybe you won't have the opportunity to visit a school prior to applying. For example, if you're looking at a school on the West Coast or in the Midwest, that you might, again, it's a time and travel commitment. So what are options that you can visit in a way, maybe virtually? A lot of schools today participate in programs such as College Week Live that has a lot of live events and chats throughout the year. Schools might offer webinars, a lot of things that Maureen mentioned, like Twitter chats, Google chats, all those things that you can still connect and somewhat, virtually visit a school that you may be interested, even though you don't physically visit. And then when you do make a visit, make sure you make a connection, a personal connection. We're all here to help you through this process, and it's nice to have someone that you've met and you can go to if you have questions throughout the process, or if you think of another question after you visited. So get a name, get an email or phone number, if it's not the representative that visits here at Staples, but someone that you met during your visit, and that's a great contact that you'll have during your search process. And then lastly, at the end of your visit, make sure you're taking good notes and summarize your visit. After a while, a lot of schools will seem the same, and you'll try to remember which one was which, so just make sure you're taking those notes, jotting down things that you really liked, things that maybe are cause for concern, or you might want to question or follow up with later. So summarize your visit, and that way you'll have everything together so you can go back and look at your notes later on.
Hi guys. Ooh, everyone awake out there? Yeah, it's okay. I stayed up watching the Keeping Up with the Kardashians special too. I get it. I'm going to talk about something very hot topic recently, which is demonstrated interest. The reason this is a hot topic is because nowadays you can, using the Common App, you can apply to a ton of schools with just the click of a button and your parents' credit card, of course. So while you have an invested interest in us, we have an invested interest in students that are interested in us, and we all want to know that you want to come to our respective schools. I'll preface this by saying you don't need to demonstrate your interest to schools that you don't want to come to, and we really, really prefer if you don't, because we'll be able to see through that. And if we're not your top school, that's okay, but please don't tell us that we are. So what you want to do is build a relationship with your counselor. There's really a couple ways that you can demonstrate interest. One of these is reaching out to your counselors. As you can see from this panel, we are all real people who want to build a relationship with you, whether it's coming to our high school visit session when we come to your high schools. A lot of us, as we talked about, we flew here and we drove long distances, and if you can't come visit our schools, that's okay, but reach out to us and let us know that it didn't work out to visit in your schedule, but you're really interested in our school and you want to know more information. It's emailing us, it's calling us, asking any questions that you might want. This doesn't mean you need to email us every week telling us that you ran a 6-minute mile in gym that day. But the important stuff, any questions that you have, we want to know. Many of us travel to Connecticut quite frequently. We do different events at hotels, different receptions, so definitely come to those and let us know that you're interested if you are. There's also a few things that you can do in terms of the application. So hopefully by now in the college process, you've realized that when we say things are optional, they're really highly encouraged. Is another way to say optional, at least from our standpoint. Many schools have optional essays and different things that you can do on the application. So if you are interested, that can really, on our end, help us figure out if you're interested in our school and whether you'd be a good fit for us as well.
Will you come up when I call you? I've got to escape here.
Bye. She's scared.
I have a short demonstration, so I need a little space. Okay. I'm Ann Fleming Brown. I'm from Union College in beautiful downtown Schenectady, New York. When you look at me, you look at a parent who has been successful in the college process. I did not write my children's essays. I did not fill out their applications, but I did drive them to visit colleges, and I paid for all of it. Now, I'd just like to say, if we had only known that each child would select a college that began with the letter B, we could have narrowed our search from early on. But we didn't know that until the end. So I'm reminded by a colleague here on the panel from the University of Michigan that she has a nice quote that she uses, that the parents should not be more memorable in the process than the students are. Can you aspire to that, parents? Now, I'd like to ask a few questions about the college trip. You've heard about it already, very wisely described. The answers to the questions are two, parents or students. Who drives the car? Do none of you have licenses? Who brings the snacks? Who plans the trip? Students don't seem to have much to do here. Who pays for lunch? Who asks the questions on the tour? Who should ask the questions on the tour? Who asks the questions in the group information session? And students should be. Now, please, let me tell you about our daughter, Caroline Brown. We named one child successfully. The other's name is Chris Brown. Now, Caroline Brown is visiting Mount Holyoke College. I'm going to repeat this for you. It's important in the story. We are at Mount Holyoke College, a perfectly lovely college in Massachusetts. Our daughter is in the group information session. I am sitting next to her quietly. She raises her hand. Yes, she is going to ask a question in a group information session. She's going to make her mother proud. May I remind you that we are at Mount Holyoke College. She says, when called upon, here at Barnard, do you give credit for advanced placement work? I remember going under the seat in Jaws, but I just sat still there and pretended not to notice, and in fact did not mention it to her for 2 years. But what I learned in that moment was more important than many, many things I could have learned. I learned she liked Barnard and Mount Holyoke, that those were her favorite schools. All right, now, Peter, would you join me? I have my lovely assistant from the University of Chicago. John, did you do the work last year? You did the work last year, right? Okay. Peter is playing my son, whose name you know is Chris Brown. Now, we're at the admissions office, Peter. Here's the door. What do we do?
I open the door.
Thank you, Peter.
For my mom.
For your mom. Go ahead, open the door. Who goes through the door first?
My mom.
Okay, I'm going through. Now, where are you?
Right behind you.
Good. Now, here is what many moms do. We are here for an interview. Now, moms, you look good. But I'm going to make a suggestion. Don't you fall off this stage, Peter Wilson. Push and step back. Now, Peter, come back again. We're going to practice this. Well, I'm just going to give you the push and step back. Now, Peter, like all students at Staples High School, do you know your first and last names?
I think so.
And what questions are they going to ask you at the reception desk?
Are you here for the tour and information session?
And what are you going to say?
Yes.
And your mother is going to be back here somewhere. Now, there's good news, parents. Admissions offices always have free coffee. Now, push and step back. Similarly, we're in the campus center. We're at the heart, the nexus of everything that goes on at the university. We see many students around. These are the ordinary students, not the students trained by the admissions office who answer all questions correctly, right? These are the regular students. Now, I'm sure that Chris Brown has a question for a regular student, but he's a bit shy. I need to help him with this. I step forward. I say to Ms. Capozzi, "Hello, we're visiting your college today. Do you mind answering a few questions for my son?" "Not at all," she says. She says, "Not at all." Then I push. And actually, usually I run. Peter, would you give him a round of applause? Nicely done, Peter. There are questions for parents to ask. These are important questions. They're about paying for college. They're about safety at college. They're about how many students return for the second year. Please ask those questions. Everyone will have respect for those. But you probably shouldn't say, "Now that you've met my lovely son, Chris Brown, are you going to admit him?" That's a little tougher. Please remember, parents, you're going to become horribly obsessive at some time during this process. There is my husband, of course, who lives with us, too. He said to me in the middle of my daughter's process, "Honey, do you think we've done everything we could have done?" And I said, "She needs to eat more vegetables, and she does not know how to ice skate." You know, that was on my checklist, apparently. So anyway, you're going to feel crazy. So who are you going to talk to? You could talk to your school counselor. Is that okay? You could call your school counselor and say, "I feel completely crazy today. Is my child going to go to college?" And they're going to say, "This has happened before. Don't worry." And the other thing is you could also get a parent partner. But I would recommend if you get a parent partner, you walk while you're complaining and talking. Now, last things. There is something in this process that's very hard, and we experienced it a little bit. I'm happy to say it all turned out very well. Both children have been happy with their college experiences, but there is a level of disappointment, and sometimes that disappointment comes at the hands of the college you love the most. So please think about that ahead of time, that it's not where your child gets into college, but the quality of their character. Test scores don't reflect quality of character. Many other things do, and you can remind them of those things. I love visiting colleges with my children. I think it's a wonderful project because I found in each case very differently. They started to stand up a little bit straighter. They started to imagine themselves as college students. They started to see that they could be successful. It brought me a great deal of joy. All right, now I'm sure that you have read the book, How to Talk So Children Will Listen, Listen So Children Will Talk. I did too. It did not work. So there are two quotes from that book that I just love to guide you through this process. One is, "Be a storehouse of your child's special memories and special moments." And the other is, "Let your children here you say something positive about them. Over here you say something positive about them. Those are two great things to take into the next year, and I wish you a lot of luck.
All right, well, that's a tough act to follow.
You were the act.
My name is Peter Wilson. I'm from the University of Chicago. And following along with Ann's question is, and we're going to talk about the college essay. Who writes the college essay?
Students!
Come on, a little louder. You're making me nervous. There we go. You're making me nervous. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the college essay. And I know this is one of those things that is probably the most nerve-wracking about the process because you have absolute full control over it when you apply. It is one of the few things that you as an applicant can control as of the day that you submit your application. I have 4 quick T's to remember. You all watch Sesame Street growing up, so today is going to be brought to you by the letter T. And those 4 T's are technique, topic, tone, and time. Technique is how you write the essay. You do not need to write the great American novel. I don't need to laugh, cry, fall out of my chair in order for you to get into college. You do not need to use words you do not know. How many of you have gone on Microsoft Word and right-clicked and gone down to synonyms and, oh, that word looks really smart, I'm going to put it in there? The best college essays have language that you normally use. You should be using, in the same vein, you should be using your own words. So having your counselors look over your essays, your parents, maybe a friend or two. You don't need to spend money on your college essay. We notice it, and we can tell. In terms of a topic, do you all know what the TMI line is? On this side are things that you talk about with your parents and your grandparents and your teachers. On this side are things that, if you were to say it in front of a 13-year-old boy, they would turn bright red and giggle. Stuff on this side of the line are not things you write of your college essay about. It happens every year. You laugh, but we see it every single year. Make sure you're talking about yourself. We read a lot of great essays where I finish off and I go, wow, I really wish we could have admitted Grandpa Frank to the University of Chicago. Sounds like a great guy. Talk about yourself in high school. So yes, a story from first grade, second grade in the first paragraph might be okay, but spending your whole essay talking about you as a 6 or 7-year-old, we're not admitting you as a 6 or 7-year-old, which is a good thing. So talk about yourself in high school. The third T of tone is probably the hardest. This is everything else we're getting from your essay. This is sort of us reading between the lines. So making sure that you're portraying yourself in a positive light. When you're writing your college essay, it's usually a good idea to be in a good mood. So you lose a big soccer game, you don't do well on an exam, your parents ground you, you break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, probably not the time to go up to your room and write your college essay. I had a young woman this year who must have done this, and she wrote an essay that should have been entitled, "My Ex-Boyfriend, an Ant-Infested Piece of Driftwood," where she spent the entire essay talking about how awful her boyfriend was. Not good for her, not good for the ex-boyfriend. That also applied to the University of Chicago. Just kidding. We want to know you're going to be a good roommate. We want to know that you're going to contribute to our campus. And this piece of your essay is going to tell us that when we're in admissions committee. Now, the final piece, the fourth T, is time. I know when I was in high school, I waited until 10 p.m. to write essays that were due the next day. Drove my parents absolutely crazy. Start those college essays this summer. Get them done before the school year starts. I know at Staples you all do way more things than you can possibly fit in a day. And adding the college application, adding your essay into that is going to make it so you sleep even less than you do already now. So make sure you're thinking about it. Make sure you're working on it now, or maybe not now, but over the summer. And it's going to help you with getting those essays done. So if you have those 4 T's, you're going to have a great college essay. Get it done now. Make sure you're using your own words and your own language, picking a topic that's appropriate, and making sure you're portraying yourself in a positive light.
Great. My name is Peter Foxen, here from the University of Connecticut. That timing of everything is a great segue into what I'm talking about. I'll be talking about the application process as a whole and what it looks like and some strategies you might be able to employ to get everything in on time and in the manner that you would like to get everything in. So the first thing I want to say is just by sitting here tonight, you all have taken that first step to get ahead and say, okay, I'm starting to plan for college. I'm starting to figure out when I need to apply. What are some of the steps? What are some things that I could do? So the first thing that you're doing right is by sitting here, so good job. Moving forward from that, you heard a little bit about deadlines and how they vary based on the type of application that you're going to be submitting. Make sure that you really do pay attention to these deadlines. Applying to a school, early decision, early action, sometimes if there are any priority consideration deadlines, I know UConn has one of those, those deadlines mean that you have to be super organized right when you get into school. I know that in the fall, it's your senior year, you're excited, you're seeing who's in your classes and what different activities you're going to be able to do, but make sure that once you get into the school, you really start paying attention to those deadlines, to the timeline of things that you need to get done, so that you're not scrambling at the last minute writing essays at 10 o'clock at night or anything like that, because that won't necessarily be your best work. You want to make sure throughout the application process that your entire application puts you or portrays you in the best light possible. Outside of those earlier deadlines, make sure that you pay attention to when the regular decision deadlines are. Some schools are rolling admissions, which means that you will hear back from them a little bit earlier as part of your application process. Some schools you can apply in October and you won't hear back until March. That's just kind of the nature of the different schools that you might be applying to. So just for your own, again, planning purposes, make sure that you figure some of that stuff out on the front end. When you're looking at schools, if you go and you tour a school and you really like what you see, immediately go on and check online using social media or different websites and check and see what some of those deadlines are. A completed application has a lot of different pieces that you've heard about so far, the first of which being the application itself. That's something that's important. And then on top of that, the essay, like you just heard about, test scores, like you've heard about as well. Like it was mentioned, some schools are test optional. Really make sure you pay attention to that too, because you don't want to be submitting tests where you might not need to, or forgetting to submit a test where you really do need to. Then outside of that, letters of recommendation, your transcripts, and any type of supplement. These are all pieces that you should add to your checklist of things to look into when you're applying to a college. What is required from each individual college? Because, like you've heard, it will vary from place to place. Just a couple of strategies, like I've said, starting early, I can't say it enough, it really is very important. Contact the people you would like to have write your letters of recommendation early on as well. That gives them time to plan. Chances are you probably aren't the only person contacting them about a letter of recommendation. So giving them a little bit of time instead of running into their classroom while they're teaching a class and saying, oh my gosh, I need a letter of recommendation by noon today. That's not going to be their best work. It's not going to put you in the best light as well. So again, all of these steps are helping to make your application the best it possibly could be. Start a dialogue with your guidance counselor. You are very fortunate to have a great guidance office here. So start a dialogue with them early on so you can tell them your plan. Tell them that there might be a school you're applying early decision to. Tell them your plan for an early action school or whether you're just applying everywhere regular decision. That way, at least you've opened the lines of communication with people who are here to help guide you. Guidance counselors, right? Has anyone ever put that together? Guidance counselors guide you. That's something that's important. They will help you throughout the process. For your essay, draft, redraft it, make sure it's your best work. That's something that you can start early on, start over the summer, as you just heard. The timing of everything is very important, so the more time you give yourself, the better it will be. The other part that I found, personally in our office, and I'm sure other offices around the country found, don't assume that by submitting the Common App or your application by 11:59, the night that it's due, that suddenly everything will be processed and arrive on the right day. That is a mistake that I can't even say how many students we see, but I submitted it on time, but there are other pieces to the application other than the Common App that need to be there for your application to be complete. So keep that in mind. I would say, honestly, the real deadline for when you should start submitting things at the very closest would be a week before everything is due. That way you can check, double check, triple check. If you're applying somewhere early decision, that means you love the school, and if you want to be considered as a part of that early decision pool, you really want to do your due diligence, so keep that in mind. Honestly, the biggest thing that I can say is just take control of the process on your own. As you heard, recently, this application process, your parents are there to help you, your guidance counselors are there to help you, but this is your application to the schools that you want to apply to. Your parents and your counselors are there for you, but do it for you. I would really suggest just kind of taking control of it, grabbing it by the horns. Sorry, Texas, and just making it your own, and that's what's going to be the best situation or scenario for you.
All right. So my name is Jared Saunders. I'm from the University of Massachusetts Amherst, also known as UMass Amherst. And I'm here to talk about finding the right fit. Now, being a little further down the line here, pretty much everyone on the panel has said something about finding the right fit. And we were just sort of laughing about that as we went down. I'm like, okay, can't really talk about that. That's already been taken. I'm sitting here thinking, all right, if one more person says something about fit, I swear I'll get out of this chair. Anne, especially. We do a lot of panels together, and she does this to me all the time. So, but I'm going to talk a little bit about finding the right fit. And if you listen to your counselors, your guidance counselors, you'll apply to several different schools. They'll be appropriate for your sort of grade and test score profile, that sort of thing. And that's not really what finding the right fit is about. It's really more about the things that are more intangible. So, well, there's some tangible things, some intangible things. I'll talk first about the tangible things. Things like do you want a large school versus a medium school versus a smaller school? You know, you want a big school like Michigan or UMass or UConn? Do you want a smaller school that, you know, some schools are small enough to fit in this building, actually. This is a pretty big building. I don't know if you guys realize that. You probably do. But, you know, where we had the dinner was probably about a 20-minute walk from here. I was sort of like, are we still at Staples right now? But the good thing is I'm wearing my Fitbit tonight, so I know I'm going to get my 10,000 steps tonight. So anywho, that's one of the things you got to consider. You want to consider, where do you want to go to school? Do you want to be in a city? Do you want to be in a rural area, suburban area? Do you want to be in a college town? That's a real thing. Does the school have your major? And if you don't have a major that you're really set on, how helpful and flexible is the school in helping you get to that point where you have a major? Those are things to consider. How many choices will you have? And how far do you want to travel? You know, do you want a day trip, a flight? You know, sometimes people draw a circle and say, okay, within a 4-hour radius, that's where I want to go to school. Some people say, I want to go outside of that 4-hour radius. So it really all depends. One of the things you really need to do, and again, this was touched on before, but you do really need to visit any school that you're considering, because those tangible things are things that you could find on a website, in a brochure. You can get that information from an admissions counselor, such as myself. But sometimes it just comes down to a feeling you get when you're on the campus. Okay, when you get there, you take a tour, you walk around, you talk to that random student in the campus center, and you ask yourself, can I picture myself here for the next 4 years? Because every school has something positive to offer. All these schools are great. Every school you look at is going to be a good school. I mean, it's college, so it's not going to be a bad experience for you. So it's just a matter of fit, and can you kind of see yourself fitting into that environment, all right? And finally, I want to say that your hard work and your creativity are the things that will make you successful in life. Okay, it's not about the school or the college that you attend. It's not about the name on the sticker on the window on the back of your car. It's about you. So keep that in mind as you look at different schools.
Thank you. My name is Sally Lindsley. I'm here from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And as Jarrett said, going down the line, a lot of our topics have been covered, but I think there's some nice themes that go through it. And the topic that I'm going to talk with you about is recommendations. And first, if our panelists could raise their hands if they require recommendations as part of their application. Okay? Does anyone have it as an optional? And remember what we said about optional. If it's a choice that you like, it's cool. All right. The other thing would be, how many of my junior students you've already asked a teacher to write your recommendation? Excellent. Hooray, hooray. How many of you have provided them perhaps with a little self-assessment or some information? All right, excellent. And now many of the schools require sometimes a counselor recommendation and a teacher recommendation. And I think that the start of the program was talking about how your counselor becomes your best friend. That is a very important person because I know our university does require the counselor recommendation and an academic teacher recommendation. Some schools require one, some require two. I always say, always have one in your pocket and one for insurance so that you aren't disappointed when everything needs to come in at a certain time, that you have allowed yourself the opportunity to make sure we have all the pieces that we need. Recommendations are very important to many of our institutions because they tell us something that we don't know about you already, that we haven't seen on the transcript, we haven't seen on the test score, and we haven't seen on the extracurricular activity. And keeping that in mind, we don't want recommendations that just relist everything that we already have. It's a qualitative context for what we can see quantitatively. It's really a character reference, and it provides that context. It has a pivotal role in many of our admissions processes. For example, I know our faculty help shape our guidelines, but they also serve on our admissions committee. And when we're in a room reading these files, which we do online, the first thing that our faculty ask to see is the teacher evaluation, followed quickly by the counselor. They want to know what kind of student is going to be in their classroom. They're very invested in the process. So it gives us another, as I said, context. It gives us another piece of that puzzle that was mentioned before, something that we didn't know. So I would choose, if you haven't chosen one or two of your junior year teachers, is usually probably the ones that are closest to you academically. Somebody from 4th or 5th grade probably does not know what your intellectual capabilities are at this point. So we choose well, choose wisely, and they are very powerful statements about who you are, what you're like in the classroom. For a teacher and for a counselor, what do you like in this community? What have you kind of contributed to your school? Because that's the kind of context that we're looking for. The other thing I would tell you, many of our recommendations have a shelf life beyond the application process. Many of our institutions have second-tier programs like an honors program or a preferred admission program or a scholarship program. And access is given to those people on campus to look at your file, and they are allowed to read your recommendations as well. So that provides them something that they didn't know about you beyond just what is on the transcript and the other quantitative things. And then for our institution, it also has a continued kind of useful purpose, is once a student is admitted and enrolled, before the students meet with the academic advisor, they read the recommendations as well as the essays that were talked about, and that provides them with sort of an introduction to what the student is interested in, what kind of person they're going to be dealing with, and it provides for hopefully a very rich experience in getting to know the student once they're on campus. So again, choose well, choose wisely, make sure that you have these people lined up. Again, part of the control that you have is you get to choose the people who will write about you in most instances.
Good evening, everybody. My name is April Hadnot. I'm the out-of-state recruitment coordinator for the University of Texas. I seriously considered saying howdy, y'all, to go with the Texas jokes, but you guys know we don't really talk like that. I'm going to talk very briefly about institutional goals and how they impact you as a student, as an applicant, as parents. And so a lot of this process, we talk about fit. Get a room full of college counselors and admissions professionals together. We'll say the word fit and maybe passion a bunch of times. You'll probably hear those words a lot. And so when we talk about fit, so much of it is you deciding if the school you're applying for is a good fit for you. But on the other side of that, we have to shape a class and admit students that fit into the institutional goals and where we're trying to take our university or our institution. And these can vary by institution based on what type of institution it is. For example, a public institution such as the University of Texas at Austin is going to have very different goals from a small private university. We, for example, have made it our mission, it's part of our goals to provide a great education for Texans. You guys aren't Texans. That doesn't mean that you can't apply to our school, but a lot of the things that we're doing and how we're shaping our class has to do with furthering that goal. And so how you can look into your institution's goals is maybe Googling the website is the most helpful resource. Sometimes students will set Google alerts to their phones to see what is going on in the campus climate. Are you getting a new president? Are you getting a new chancellor? Do you have a board of regents? What is the institution trying to do? How are they moving forward? Are there new research initiatives that are moving forward that are going to impact the class and what students are admitted to the particular institution? So that is all I have.
Hey, y'all. Whoa. We embrace the y'all in Nashville. So my name's Zeb. I'm here from Vanderbilt University. And I'm here to talk a little bit about how do you distinguish yourself. We've talked a lot about parts of the application, how you should approach those, ways to think about doing that. But truly at the heart of your application for any school is you are distinguishing yourself and you're finding what you want, going back to that fit. But what you should do is distinguishing yourself is hard. You guys are young, you have a full life ahead of you, and things may seem really important to you right now that are not really that important. And so I'm gonna do a little kind of exercise with the students. So students, stand up because we did a little stretching break. So students, stand up if you have scored the winning goal for an intramural sport, a club sport, or a varsity sport to significantly change the outcome of that athletic sport. Come on, Staples has to have good sports, right? Okay, so keep standing, keep standing. Stand up if you have been the lead role. Keep standing. I want everyone who is standing up to keep standing. Stand up if you have been the lead role in some sort of comedy club or theater organization, either on campus or off campus, somewhere in the community. Stand up. Okay. Stand up if you've ever driven someone in a safe ride organization. Keep standing up. Stand up if you've ever done community service and gotten some recognition for that at a higher level. Okay, so now look around. Parents look around, students look around. Those things are all incredibly, incredibly important to your application. They make you who you are. They make you who we want in our institutions. So you guys can sit down now. So one, don't write your application essay about something that everyone else in this room was just standing up about, right? Staples High School is a large school, but there's a lot of high schools like Staples in the United States. The most important thing that you can be doing when you're looking at how you're presenting yourself in your application is to show us that you are doing what you love and that you're doing it well. None of us are making judgment calls as to what you're good at and what you love. We just want to see that you are doing it well and you're devoting time to it. So when you're finding your way to distinguish yourself, really think about what makes you a little bit different. What makes you weird? I'm a weird person, and I know a lot of things. There are a few very specific things that makes me very different from probably every person in this room. Those are the types of things that we want you to be telling us in your application. Those are the types of things that we want you to be writing your essays about. Those are the types of things we want you to be telling us when we meet you in person. Those are the types of things that really will make you stand out from every other applicant in an application pool. You don't have to impress us, because the thing that makes you different may be that you are the hacky sack champion of Connecticut. That's really interesting, and that distinguishes you from the rest of the applicant pool. So really think hard about what gets you out of bed in the morning. What is your life goal, and what makes you different from everyone? And that's what we are looking to find, because that's what we are looking to bring to all of our campuses. So really think hard. I mean, I know scoring that goal and winning that championship seems life-changing at the time, but it's not. It really isn't. Though Vanderbilt is competing in the national championship for tennis, and that is life-changing. But really, when you're thinking about the application, you're going through this process, the whole point is it's an exploratory process for you to find what distinguishes yourself from everyone else. And that's what you should be talking about and focusing on when you go into this next year, because that's what's going to get you into the school that is the best fit for you is the passion that you have for those activities and how you can pursue those wherever you end up going.
Anybody besides me happy we're at the end of the line? Now I feel like the guy at graduation who has the last letter, right? I'm a B. I should be up there somewhere, last name-wise. I always got out first. Well, good evening. I'm John Burney, Director of Admission at Wofford College in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And we do say y'all, and we do have good barbecue, and we are the biggest peach state out there, not Georgia, just to let you know that. True story. Google online the accident that happened on the major highway because someone was looking at the peach water tower as you come into Spartanburg, literally. Major lawsuit because somebody was looking at this giant peach in the air. True story. I know the Southerners don't know how to drive, do they? All right, so I get the lucky and distinguished topic of financial aid. And I'm going to give some credit here to Zeb when we were talking up here about aid. He's like, just tell him college isn't free. And that's the end of my story. No, I'm kidding. But it's not. It's an investment for your future. But it means that you have to have a discussion about what's realistic, which means have that conversation at home and start that conversation now. As you look at all of your options that are out there, there are prices all over the board as far as what a sticker cost of college is. Not a lot of people pay sticker price. That's a secret we don't like to tell you, but it happens. But you need to start talking about what's realistic in your household about where should we look at. Should we look at private schools? Should we stick to public schools who might have a bit more reduced cost in-state? Out-of-state publics, as an out-of-stater for many of these schools, you're paying our private school prices to go to a public out-of-state. So you need to start looking at those pieces. I'm going to encourage everyone to apply for financial aid. That might not be the general consensus on the board, but I think it helps. It allows you to maximize your dollars, and it allows you to maximize my financial aid budget. I can provide you funding that you might not believe that you're eligible for. Typically, there's two ways to do so. The standard form that every college will require is the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. There's a secondary form called the CSS Profile. Some schools it's required, some schools it's optional, and I'm not really sure how optional it really is at those schools. That's something to discuss at those places. And some schools will have their own institutional form as well. So know ahead of time that there's a little bit of work that you're going to have to do. As you prepare for financial aid, it makes sense to have your numbers ready early. This is the one time where you don't wait till April 15th to finally figure out all of your numbers. This is the year to be proactive and get your taxes done early. I'm going to give you a couple key terms and end this talk. Things that you're going to see in financial aid packages. Things called merit scholarships. And those merit scholarships are typically based on a combination of things, usually academic and extracurricular combined. You're going to find things called grant. And that's typically college dollars we provide back to families who need additional financial assistance. So it's college money that's coming back to you. Both in the scholarship and grant area, they are not dollars you have to repay. That is free money for you. Additionally, and here's some touchy areas, if you file for financial aid, many colleges will package you with a student loan. It's optional. You can take it or not. That is a repayment piece. But I like to say, students, take some skin in the game and take that loan. It's a great opportunity to do so. You're also going to find something called work study in some packages. And that's going to be working traditionally on campus in an on-campus job in a variety of areas, typically making a bit more than minimum wage, which is great. But it's a way for you to work off some of those dollars. You do get paid by the college. No longer can we take that money off of tuition. You have to be given a check, a disbursement check, as any other worker would. And then you can take those funds and use it to what's most necessary. Are you buying books with it? Is it personal expenses? Or are you sending it back home to actually pay for your college? Your choices. The final piece I'm going to give you is, as you start to look at colleges, something that you're going to be aware of and that you're going to hear more about, there are colleges that are need blind in admission and some that are need aware or need sensitive. Two specific topics. And what that means generally in the admissions process is, if you are need blind, we do not consider the ability to pay while making your admissions decision. There's where the blindness comes in. We turn our head to it, we don't look at it. For schools that are need aware or need sensitive, they have the ability to take into account the ability to pay of the family in the final admissions decision. It's an absolutely upfront question you are able to ask at any school. What is their policy, need blind versus need aware or need sensitive? I'm going to end it there. Thank you.
Okay, so I promised that we would get to questions, and we're going to do that now. And I see one mic down there that we can walk around with, and I think there'll be another one coming in a minute. So here comes the other mic. So I would encourage students to ask questions, and you've got this whole panel of amazing people that you just heard that are going to be happy to answer them for you. So who's the first brave person to do that? Okay, we've got a couple right here.
Okay, oh, I have to stand up? Okay, give me a sec. All right, so I was wondering what all of your respective colleges' opinions are on supplemental things that are sent in, including like recommendations from outside of school from like coaches and other prominent figures in our lives, or supplemental materials such as art portfolios or music performances, etc. And how they help, what's too much, what's a good addition, yeah.
I think the rule of thumb there is to really think about how it's supplementing your application. Is this a piece of information about you that we've never heard about before? Maybe it is. Maybe a recommendation from someone who knows a completely different aspect of you that adds something really positive to your application that you feel your application would be incomplete without. I think that is the real rule of thumb. In response to art and music supplements, there are some schools that will require those as part of a portfolio for a particular program, or there are schools where you don't have to supply that for the school, but they have that option. So they often have a different way to submit those to faculty members, so that's a great place to look on the website for how to submit those materials. Otherwise, again, if it supplements your application in a way that you feel is incredibly meaningful to you, then it's a good idea.
I'm going to add just a tiny bit there. We're looking for students that will fill different activities on campus and bring different talents with them. So if you have a real talent in music, and by that I mean not just your parents think you're talented, or your private teacher, or even your high school teacher, but beyond that, you're really talented in music, I think we would all welcome that. We have a full orchestra. We want to fill up that orchestra. Same thing with theater and dance and art. And we athletic teams, we want to feel great athletic teams too. So if you have particular talent in athletics, contact the coaches. Also, so please, 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 if you have special talents like that, make sure you let us know about that.
I think we're doing students first. Yeah, in a little bit. Any more students? Students? I know there's a lot of you out there. We'll get you next.
When should you and should you not submit AP scores? Like, is there a general rule? Should you always submit them? Should you submit them if it's like a 3 and above? Should you submit it if it's a 4 and above? What, like, is there a rule? What would you guys recommend?
We don't require AP scores. If students send them in, we do try to use them to the student's advantage. For us, the AP scores become meaningful once a student's enrolled, and then we have our faculty look at how much transfer credit or where it might place you in a certain class. But again, it's just like we don't require the subject tests, but if students provide us with that information, we're going to use everything that a student puts into the application that might be of help. And I guess I would add, though, if you send a portfolio in and you're not an art student and it comes to our office, I don't think you want anyone in our office judging that portfolio. So what I would tell you is if you do have that talent and it isn't a requirement, make sure that you have put it on your list of things that you do and get involved in, and also talk about it in your essay. That's where we're going to read it and note it.
I think also with the AP scores or even college level courses that you've taken here, if those are important to you to figure out if you can bypass introductory level courses, how many of those credits, depending on where you score, would count towards credits in college, I think that's a perfectly valid question to ask. Sometimes it's written out quite clearly on a college website. Other times you can ask an admissions counselor and they might know the answer. If not, contacting deans within the school. But, that's the other side of it. Yes, it's for us what we require for APs, but you guys have done quite a bit of hard work, a lot of cases with the APs, with the college level courses. So just to see what would transfer over to the college level and would count towards possibly college graduation.
Could I just point out a tricky thing that happens? Do you know when you're taking your SATs, you can put the code down to have your test scores sent to Union College in beautiful downtown Schenectady, New York? You can also put Union College on your AP scores, but in fact, that is delivered directly to our registrar's office and does not come to the admissions office like the SAT, ACT, or subject tests do. On the common application, and I'm just trying to remember, maybe someone on the panel can help me, it says write down every test you took and all the results you know. Frankly, I think if you got a 1 on an AP, which by the way I never ever saw ever, can you get a 1? Oh, you can. She's knowledgeable in this. If you got a 1, I'd leave it off. One thing about a 3, 4, or 5 for so many colleges is that brings credit. And that means that you have demonstrated already your ability to do well on the advanced placement work in college work. Now, some people might say it's formulaic, some people might say it's not good, but for so many disciplines, you have executed at that level. And if you've done well in those exams, Peter's mother taught AP US, but his results were not as she had hoped. But they're something to really represent. It's a wonderful thing to tell and talk about. Yeah, good luck. Sorry, Peter.
Hi. Is there anything in the application that is, the second you see it, you say, no, we can't accept this student, or yes, this is definitely a student? Like, I know this question is pretty like relative, but is there anything like, oh my God, they got a 1400 on their SATs, like that's definite cutoff or definite like yes? Is there anything like that that we should like?
It's not, I wish it was that simple. It's really not. We spend a lot of time, and I talked to a lot of colleagues today, and a lot of people are doing holistic reviews, which mean we're looking at everything. We're looking, so there's not usually, a lot of times too, I'm approached in college fairs, and students will say, well, what does my SAT need to be? What does my ACT? What do my grades have to be? And it's just never as simple as one number or two numbers. It's a whole combination.
Okay, makes sense.
But you can use some statistical analysis. Every school publishes their middle 50% range on the SATs. So if you're above that range, is the college going to smile on your test scores? Oh, yes, they are. If you're in the range, you're in the mix, right? You're in the middle 50% mix. If you're below the range, no. No. Find a school where you're at the top of the range that's going to want you and give you a merit scholarship, right? So use some of those tools. You also have your Naviance. And try to always avoid the hope springs eternal view of college admissions. Colleges that admit, if you applied to 7 colleges and each one admitted fewer than 10%, your chances are not better at each of those schools because you applied to 7 of them. Find some schools that are right in your sweet spot. I remember visiting one college. It did begin with a B. He didn't choose it. And we left that college and I said, what a beautiful college, what a wonderful place, and right in Chris Brown's wheelhouse. You know, right, just a perfect, what do they call it, sweet spot, right, the right place to go to college. And it would have been wonderful if his other school hadn't worked out. So find that match. And remember, it's never only going to be about test scores.
I will say one thing that I don't think any of us are particularly fond of on the panel is if you're careless with your application, and I don't know, we had a fine student apply to our institution on the supplementary application essay saying, why do you want Hobart and William Smith? And he was very thoughtful, saying that I really want to go to Union College to play football. Yes, yes. So I made sure that we gave him the opportunity to play football at Union College. So just be, you know, really thoughtful about it. I had a student this year that called his mother his father, which was really confusing because his mother had a male name for a first name. So when I was talking to his mother on the phone, she sounded quite feminine for a father. So, you know, his parents got a nice chuckle out of that. But just, you know, really look over it and make sure your I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and you do have the proper name on the application. Another, you know, word of thumb that you should probably do is, you know, when you're visiting one institution, don't wear another institution's gear to that school, because, you know, we have to stare at it the whole time that we're talking with you. So yeah, so just make sure that when you submit an application, it has that school's name throughout.
I'm going to follow up on that too. Inevitably, there are going to be schools that say no. And as tempting as it's going to be to call that school and ask why you were denied, please don't. Because it's not just one thing. And your admissions counselors are not going to tell you. Because it's not just one thing that stood out in an application. We are looking really holistically at these applications, and there is a combination of things that are getting you into the schools that you're applying to. And there are also a combination of things that are making it be a no. And so when you're thinking about it, you know, as tempting as that is, it's not just one thing, and there's not just one reason. There's a whole bunch of reasons. And so when you're thinking about it, you know, make sure that your application is strong and well-rounded, because all of those parts matter, and it's not just one thing.
Wait. Are you a convicted felon?
Well, there's that too. Yeah.
If not, you're good. If you're not,
good. Absolutely good.
Behind you.
Right here.
Behind you.
Further.
This is sort of on the topic of extracurriculars again, but if you're in a band, is it a good idea to send a copy of your album with your application?
Are you in a good band?
Yeah, are you good?
I'd like to think so, yeah. I mean, I've been told by my peers, but thank you.
It'll give us something to listen to while reading applications, so. You know, it's one of those things where if as we said, if it's something that's you're really passionate about, that's important to you, then by all means submit something. I think, you know, the general rule is it's quality, not quantity. But obviously, if you're in a band, you probably dedicate, you know, quite a bit of time, since I'm sure you're in a very good band. So yeah, so definitely do that if it's important to you and you think a school really needs to know that side of you.
Yeah, I would also say, coming back to this idea of like passion and doing what you love to do, you'd be surprised, even without sending that CD, if you're passionate about this band, how many times it may come up in the application as it is. So I would say, if there's an opportunity for you to submit it formally via an art supplement, that may be a good opportunity for music faculty to see your work. Yes, maybe we'll want to listen to it, but I think my feeling is sort of a thin file is a confident file. That's sort of my favorite line. I think you'd be surprised with how much we know already in that application.
But once again, go with accuracy. I did have a student put a Vimeo address on for a dance supplement. It was either dance or vocal, and I typed it in because I couldn't copy and paste it. I typed it in, and lo and behold, it brought me to a porn site. So, wow. I typed it in again to make sure that I had done it correctly, and porn site again. So I don't think it was that student on the porn site. I don't think that she wanted me to see that side of her. So
did you watch it before?
My face is a little blushed just from that experience. like I said, make sure it's accurate what you put on that application.
Actually, going back to that question about, if there's something that you see in an application that might, really sort of, yay or nay, I think that would fall under nay.
Yeah.
It might depend on who's reading it, to be honest with you, but yeah.
That side of artistic, we don't need
probably,
to know.
generally speaking, not a good idea to include
If that's what you're
pornographic
passionate about,
material.
Just kidding. I'm absolutely kidding. Please don't send us porn.
But I also want to say too, if you are in a band or you do theater or anything like that, and you want to send something, a lot of us read electronically. We don't have like physical files anymore. So if you can send us a link or something that's easy for us to click on and look at really quick, so we don't have to get up and go to the mailroom and find a CD, that sort of thing, that would be easier too. So just something to consider.
Also, one thing to consider, if you are interested in studying music at the college and university level, and you're majoring in music, in a lot of cases, you're going to actually need to have a supplemental application, and you'll also very often do a live audition. So that would be an extra part of research that you do need to do if you're thinking of doing anything in the performing arts.
Would you encourage interviews at schools that don't necessarily recommend or request them?
Yes. Sorry, I'll answer that. If schools say interviews are optional, especially if interviews are done outside of the admissions office, they truly are optional. We can't put optional up to something and then put weight behind it if we don't require that every single student do it. So for us, I'll use that as an example, we have optional alumni interviews that you can do. If you do not make the deadline for that interview, don't email us to ask if you can do it because the deadline's passed, but it's optional. And schools your counselor should be very clear with you about what that level of whether or not something is optional. Because if we're going to put weight behind it, we need to be very clear about that in our admissions process. So that's a good question to ask every single school that you're looking at, and maybe to mark down on a spreadsheet of requirements for schools. But really, interviews are a great way to connect with the university. For some schools that look at demonstrated interest, that's a great way to show demonstrated interest. For other schools that don't look at demonstrated interest, for example, Vanderbilt, it's a really great way for you to learn more about the institution, but it's not necessarily something that we require.
And I will say, check with the institution, because I get students that email me all the time and they're like, I want to set up an interview, and I'm like, we don't do interviews. And if you were really interested in our school, you would know that. Like, you would check the website and you would see we don't do interviews. And I think along the lines of demonstrated interest too, I get a lot of students who email me all the time, and they email me updates about things that they are involved in and things that they have going on in their life. And that's great to a certain extent, but you should definitely check with your institution to see how they track demonstrated interest, who's going to be reading your application. I get a lot of students who contact me and they think that I'm going to be the one making the decision, and that's not true. And so I think it goes back to that idea of being authentic and being genuine. If you have something, an updated resume every once in a while, it's okay to reach out to your counselor and send them some updates. That's fine. We love to hear that, but I don't need to know what you ate for lunch. I don't need to know that you got an A on your chemistry paper necessarily. We're going to see that later on in the application process. But, the schools that you're interested in, they probably have a regional representative. And so it is a good idea to reach out to them and form a connection with them. But making sure that you know where the line is as far as, do they do interviews? Is it okay to just keep in contact with that person? Send them an email every once in a while? That's completely fine. But making sure you're genuine and it's not just this effort to, I hear a lot of parents say, make them remember you, make them remember you. And that's not necessarily in our process. You sending me 1 million emails is not really going to help you. It's not going to help you. And so, contacting that person, contacting your representative to ask them questions that you have, that's a good use of your time and your resources, and also that admissions counselor's resources as well.
A lot of small colleges offer interviews. Do you think you'd be good in an interview? She doesn't know. But did you all do a lunch about interviewing this week? Yeah. The interviews are a great opportunity for you to tell your story. Sometimes there are people who shouldn't have interviews. You may know who you are. Chris Brown started that way, but he warmed up. So when you're going for your interview, it's a nice chance to answer more than what I call the dentist's chair question. So you're in the dentist's chair, and the dentist says, so you're a senior, so where are you applying to college? What are you going to study? Open your mouth, please. And you have just 10 seconds to answer everything about your future. In an interview, you're going to have a half an hour or 45 minutes to talk about what you're interested in, to find out how that matches with the college you're visiting. And small colleges often offer that opportunity. You need to practice some interview questions. Some of them are kind of ridiculous. Chris and I are in the car. We're driving to a college. I said, often colleges will ask you for 3 adjectives to describe yourself. He said, Mom, there's no way any college is ever going to ask me that. Then he went into his interview and he came out and he said, what were the 3 adjectives that we picked in the car? Some of those things are unfamiliar. You want to be positive about your high school because you're an ambassador for your high school. You want to be positive about your family, about your academic life. You want to set a positive tone with the college when you're talking to them, but you're going to have a chance to explore your interests. Maybe you have an unusual combination of things and you'd like to play a sport and do a double major, and that gives you time to really talk to the admissions office about that. And again, that's usually only available at small colleges.
The interview is also a good way for you to give some context to maybe a rocky patch you might have had in your academic career. So if you've had a grade that maybe wasn't consistent with what you've done in the past, or something came up, it's a good time to frame that for us as well, so that we can have that information when we go and read your application and see that grade later on. So it's a great way to do that. It's really a great way, just like the essay, to define yourself outside of your academic stats.
And for schools like Texas and Michigan, we don't do interviews except if they're required as part of the review process for some programs in the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. And there are, the College of Engineering is piloting some alumni interviews, more because the alumni really would like to help out. But we consider the personal essay and what you write as your opportunity to tell your story, as Ann said. So that's really the opportunity for you to, on paper, have that sort of interview with us. Hopefully tonight you've got, some faces for some of these institutions. So we're the ones reading your files. So this is an opportunity for you, as I said. Tell your story on paper if the school doesn't offer you an opportunity to have that face-to-face interview.
Another thing, somewhat to tie in with the interview, and it was mentioned a couple times here about it's your time as well to ask us questions and have some conversation of, you have interest in this and that, and how can you combine those. But the other thing that, doesn't necessarily have to come in an interview, but anytime if you're making a connection with someone at the institutions that you're considering, with your academic programs of interest or a particular career path that you're considering, there's usually more than one path that you can take to ultimately meet your academic and career goals. I think sometimes students get very focused, okay, if I want to do this, I have to major in this. Not always the case, and that's where, again, whether it's during an interview or just if you're following up with someone that you met during an information session or, again, your regional rep, talk about those things. You know, these are my academic interests. I know you have this major, this is what I'm looking at, but is there something else that I should consider? And hopefully we're going to be guiding you on that path as well, and we might initiate that, but those are things to consider as you're looking at different institutions. Are there other ways that I can explore and eventually achieve my academic and career goals?
And I'm sure that the guidance counselors here at Staples High School can also work with you and help you prepare for interviews. So I would encourage you to think about that, especially if you're going to be applying to schools where you probably will have to interview. Talk to your guidance counselors. They're, you know, it's another resource for you, and they have great experience in these areas.
Is it advantageous to send recommendations that were written by people who attended the schools, or does that not necessarily carry that much weight?
It's going to vary at every institution, so you'll have to see if you'll have to check with the institution. For us, no, it doesn't. Letters of recommendation are optional. It can be written by a janitor. It can be written by a senator. We're really looking for someone who's going to tell us a little bit more about you. But that's probably going to be something that's going to differ from institution to institution.
We have 540,000 living alums.
I would say when thinking about supplemental recommendations of that nature from an alumni, they may know you, your personal attributes. They may know you because they're close friends with your family. Really think carefully about who you have submitting a supplemental recommendation. The reason you should be submitting any supplemental recommendation is to make an already very strong application stronger, and to tell us something different that's not being told by another person. If that alum somehow knows your parents, but you've only met them, at 2 dinner parties, they don't know a lot about you. And so that recommendation is not necessarily going to tell us anything different about you or make you any stronger through that application process. So really think carefully about who you have submitting letters of recommendation, because we want each one to tell us something different about you, and the more we have to read about that same award that you're getting, that's not telling us anything new. And so when you're thinking about it, really think carefully about what that person could be saying about you.
I'm wondering how colleges are taking into account the changing of the SAT standardized testing.
Oh,
yeah, Ann.
Are you a junior? Oh, she's a sophomore. We've got to help her.
I think that's it for questions tonight, right? I think we're...
Are you going to do it? Oh,
No,
that's enough for... Do you know what? You're going to make it through. Okay, juniors, you're taking that same old SAT we've been taking for the last 18 years or whenever they changed it the last time. For you, you have a couple of choices. You can look to the new. You can say, I'm going to embrace that new SAT even though I know nothing about it. You can take the old SAT, or you can divert and take the ACT twice, as the changes to the ACT will not be noteworthy in the years that you're taking testing. The other thing you can do, I hate to recommend extra testing. You've got better things to do on Saturdays. You could be learning French. But you have the opportunity to take subject tests along the way. And for me, I love to see that you've done well in a discipline. That also supports all of that and your testing profile. So worry a little bit, talk to your counselor, and make a plan. No one raised his or her hand to say they love testing, but there are some people who love puzzles and projects of that kind who are intrigued by the standardized testing and therefore will naturally do pretty well at it. If you present us an old SAT, we'll look at it. If you present us a new SAT or two, we'll look at it. I would never recommend extra tests. I've recently heard, although I have no statistical backup for this, that if you take a test once, you do so well. The second time, you're likely to improve, and the third time, you're not. So think about those things. Sometimes people take the tests. Does anyone have a record number? Kate, you ever like a record number? 10?
No.
I mean, we've seen people who've taken tests 10 times. Does anyone think that that's appropriate? Ms. Capozzi does not like that at all. Imagine the time, emotional energy, money that went into that testing. It's a lot. So keep it where it belongs in that perspective. Yeah, the other thing I think about for testing is once I told my husband my standardized tests, I mean, we're still married, but it wasn't really a good day. And he came back to me and he said, you know, I'm smart too. By the way, he's a genius on that New York Times word puzzle. He's a genius. So I would just say to you, you don't want to go around saying, let me tell you my SATs if you want to continue to be popular in your community. So share them at home, cry or celebrate, or do what we did when Caroline's test scores came back. She left the room, and my husband and I looked at one another and said, she's not too smart, she's not too dumb, she's ours.
I think that might be a good note to end on. So I want to thank the panelists so much. Let's have a round of applause. They've been amazing. I want to thank the audience and the students who asked great questions. And I just want to tell you that you've just met the people that are the human beings behind the process that you're going through. And they're awesome, and they're going to help you through this journey. Have a great night. Thank you.